Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah wal alhamdulillah wa aslatu wa aslamu Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters, as we make our way through Ramadan, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that some days are harder than others. And that's okay. The struggle on these difficult days is a part of Ramadan. And it's these days that we gain the most self-discipline. So to break down Ramadan generally, it's broken down into 3 phases. The first 10 days, the second 10 days, and the last 10 days. Now, the first 10 days, we have all this momentum. I mean, we've been anticipating Ramadan throughout the year, so we're all excited. We have this excitement and momentum, and that usually propels us right through the first 10 days or so. That leaves us with the second 10 days and the last 10 days. As that motivation fades, there's usually rough spots in the latter half of Ramadan. And when I mean rough spots, I mean there's just some days that are harder than others. And again, that's okay. But during these rough days, it's the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam that comes to mind, specifically about the journey to Mecca. Now, once again, there's a lot to take from his journey overall. In fact, the Sira itself begins with the journey of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But today's focus will specifically be about that migration. Now I'm going to lay the setting out for you guys. This is thousands of years ago. Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in Iraq. He traveled to Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and he eventually migrated to Mecca. When he was in Egypt, he was married to Sarah, and then eventually married to Hajar, who gave birth to Ismail alayhi salam. He received divine instructions to relocate his family and start traveling. Now I want you guys to use your imagination for a second. Imagine thousands of years ago, traveling. What was the weather like? Hot and dry, and you could put that in capital letters. What was his attire? What were they wearing? I mean, they definitely didn't have all the Nike soles and the Adidas boots that we wear today. Were there buses and trains and planes? Of course not. You had a camel if you were lucky. So the task itself of traveling to these locations was a difficult one in itself. So, as he relocated his family, you have to realize he was traveling with the most precious cargo, his wife and his child. And Ibrahim alayhi salam received divine instructions again to leave his family. And he was traveling thousands of miles. He left his family in a barren place. And keep in mind, throughout these miles, as he was traveling, there were places where there was food, there was water, there was people. But he passed all these places. And when he eventually stopped at this barren place, there was nothing. There was no water, no food, no people, nothing to really support life. And then he left his family. He later returned. And when he later returned, he and Ismail Islam built what we now know as the Kaaba. And as you all know, Hajj itself now is a pillar of Islam. So we're going to stay focused on the migration itself. And I want to ask everybody, and I want to ask myself, what do we learn from this migration? And how do we apply it to Ramadan? Well, there's 3 main takeaways. Takeaway number 1, the value of being uncomfortable. Understanding that greatness and growth typically comes when you're out of your comfort zone. So in this month of Ramadan, it's going to be those days, the difficult ones, that you're uncomfortable. But remember to push through it, because your greatness is being written with Allah. Number two, hard work works. Do the work. Ibrahim alayhi salam could have traveled tens of miles, hundreds of miles, but he traveled thousands of miles. Thousands of miles. So in this month of Ramadan, there's going to be those difficult days. But remember, there is a beautiful, bigger picture that we don't yet see. So make sure you do the work. And finally, and most importantly, trust Allah. When Ibrahim alayhi salam left his family, they were in the middle of nowhere. He received divine instructions and he trusted Allah. So, as we go through this Ramadan, just keep in mind that Allah is the greatest of planners. And we don't see the bigger picture. So make sure you trust Allah. So I'm going to recap these three. The value of being uncomfortable, hard work works, and trust Allah. And keep in mind that these values and these lessons we can apply right now, but we can apply throughout the year. Jazakallah khair.